What's up guys, Jerome here from the Bonsai Supply, and today we are going to repot this trident maple and talk about its future progression. So I just very recently acquired this very cool trident maple, and of course I acquired it because it has a very cool root flare, a very cool base, which drew me right to it and I had to have it. So this tree is fairly new. What I like about it a lot is that it is kind of like a shorter sumo sized tree with a nice root spread. Like I said, there were 2 trunk chops made already, which of course is going to save me a lot of time. One was made here, which is completely healed over. The other one was made right up here, which is also completely healed over, which is really nice. Now, some of the things that are not so nice about it right now that we have to fix, which is not a big deal, I just like to point them out there. So one of the things is we have to repot this tree into a much larger pot, because as you can see back here, this root is pushing up against the edge of the pot and is growing over the pot. So we need to fix that immediately and repot it into a larger pot. This tree also has far too many branches, which we need to reduce, but I'm going to wait until the first flush of the year has hardened off. That's when I go in and do some branch selecting. Right now I don't really know much about this tree. I don't know how vigorous it is or how healthy it is, and that's why I just let all the branches push out, just to make sure that I have all the branches that will stay alive. Also, it kind of looks like a pine at the moment, which we can then also fix. You have that very strong triangle, which we need to soften over time as well. Now this tree, we have to get it out of the soil immediately, because this tree is only in lava rock and clay. And the clay doesn't do anything, it's just a filler, so it doesn't have any pores, it doesn't help with water drainage or fertilizer retention or anything like that. So that's why we need to go ahead and repot this tree immediately. And of course repot it into our all-purpose bonsai soil mixture. Alright, so the first job is to take this tree out of its current pot, and we're going to use a root sickle to gently loosen it, because we don't know how tight this tree is in here. And so the reason why I'm repotting this tree now, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of roots in here, which is not surprising. So this tree is going to pop right out. So the reason why I repot this tree now is because since I don't know anything about this tree, I don't know how healthy it is, I don't know how vigorous it is, and that's why I waited until I can see the buds starting to push. That's really good practice on deciduous trees, to always wait until the new buds start to push, and that's really the safest time to go ahead and repot. You can repot deciduous trees a little earlier than that, but Japanese maples, however, are a little more finicky, and so for those you really want to wait until you see the buds really push. But as you can see up here, I see a lot of green now. The tree is really pushing strong, so I know it's safe for me to go in here and repot this tree now. I just think it is a very safe practice to always wait with deciduous trees until you start to see them push, and then go ahead and repot. Now obviously that's easier said than done if you only have a few trees. If you have a lot of trees, you can get away with it earlier. But really important is that once you repot a deciduous or conifer trees in early spring, make sure that you protect them from freezing temperatures. So try to keep this tree above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and if it dips below 40, just take them inside the house, move them into the garage, just protect them from the very cold. Alright, so as I'm driving my root sickle through the around the edges of the pot to loosen the pot, I can tell that there's not a lot of roots in here. So what I can do to pop this tree out of the pot, I can slide a chopstick in on the side, like this, and under the roots, and then just gently push it up. There we go. Kind of use it like as a shoe ladle, is that what it's called? A shoe ladle or a shoe spoon, and just push it out of the pot. Now you have to be careful with this. Here we go. So pretty much what I thought, you can tell that this tree does not have a lot of roots, and it has been in this pot for over 3 years, I've been told. So this is actually quite terrible on roots. And that's not surprising because of the soil that it came in. But we're gonna, turn it around today. So every time I acquire a new tree, the first thing I do is repot it right away into some soil that I'm familiar with and that I know is gonna make a big difference. now the good part about this tree is that all the grunt work has already been done for me, which is really nice. I have a very flat root system in here. I don't have a lot of roots, but that's okay. It's a maple. It'll push out. I'm not too worried about that. But as you can see in here, inside of the, underneath of the root ball, here, there's no roots in here. And so what we want to do is build up the soil into like a little mound so that we can set the tree on top like that and then wiggle it down. And this is really good practice for all of your trees when you repot them. Make a little mound, wiggle the tree down into position, and that way you work out all of the air pockets. Alright, so the pot that I chose is handmade in the United States. It is a lot shallower than the old one was, which gives the roots a little more room to grow. Now obviously there's not that much more room to grow, but I did that on purpose because I don't want the root spread to get too big now, because this is a sumo tree, so it's going to be a short squatty tree, and I don't want this root spread to get now too big. I want to kind of keep the root spread in check now, and the pot that I chose is a white crackle pot with some orange on top. Now I think that blends in really nicely with the tree itself, because we do have a lot of white on the trunk as well as orange and red in the back here in the front. You see it all over the tree. There's a little bit of white as well mixed with red in here. And also once the fall colors really show, the red is going to match the red of the fall colors quite nicely. So I do like the pot a lot. Now you may have noticed that I've gone into a round pot, which is not very typical for deciduous trees. However, I thought it was quite fitting for this particular tree here, since it is a short, squatty, sumo styled tree. Now here's what I'm going to do in the future. Once the first flush has completely pushed out, the new growth has hardened, I'm going to go in here and do some branch selecting. Obviously this tree has way too many branches for right now, so I'm going to remove, I want to say about 60 to 70% of all of the branches and just keep a very few. I prefer to have more branches out here on the ramification versus coming from the trunk. A lot of branches coming from the trunk is usually on a very, very young tree and not on an old tree, and we'd like to resemble an older tree here, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and clean up the trunk once at a time. Of course, let it push out. Once the new growth has hardened, I'll come in here and cut it back and do all the work that I need to do. Now one thing to look out for now that this tree has been repotted into a shallower pot, it's going to be, most likely it's going to need to be watered more frequently, so that's definitely something to keep an eye on in the summer. But besides that, I'm really happy the way that it turned out. And if you have any questions on deciduous trees or maple specifically, please comment them below in the comment section, and I will catch you guys next time.
All right.